Welcome to Beyond the Balance Sheet, the podcast where we go beyond numbers to tell the real stories behind money. Every financial decision you make carries a story, a dream, a lesson, and sometimes even a struggle. Here, we explore the choices that shape lives, the emotions tied to wealth, and the insights that lead to success. This episode is brought to you by Vuka Investment Club, Kenya's first wealth tech platform, helping you invest in resilient, secure, profitable, and regulated real estate.
So we all dream of financial freedom. You know, the kind that lets you breathe a little easier. You can plan boldly for your life, have a few plans for your future, and not worry about the cost. Now, what happens when things don't go that way? What happens when life throws you curveballs and everything shifts? Now, in today's episode, we're going to go into the raw and real life story of a woman who had it all lined up. But alongside that came the real weight of life. You know, unexpected responsibilities came in, unexpected bills came in, debt came in, and all these things that she had not planned for. Now, today we're going to dive into, the emotional, the messy, the confusing, and yes, sometimes the shame-filled part that comes with money. The part that we always keep private and not talk about yet, that could be the most transformative part of our lives. Now, this episode is not just about money. It's about the unpredictable nature of life. What happens when financial pressures meet your emotional reality? Now, if you could look back and you find yourself in a position where you are rebuilding from scratch, you find yourself, you're wondering where your money went, then this is the episode for you. Now, today's guest is none other than Joanne Kiarie. Welcome to the show, Joanne, and we are happy to have you here.
Thank you, Nyalwal. Nice to be here.
Yes, it's good, catching up with you after some time. It's been a while. I reached out to you just hoping that you'd be in a position to share your story. It's not always easy to share your story.
No, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like pariah. We don't talk about money. That's how we grew up.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because a lot of us have lessons that we pick up as we grow up, but we rarely want to share them. Because one, we think that it's embarrassing. And we don't really think that, people are human and people can make mistakes. And so I'm really glad that you're here. You're very brave, by the way.
Yeah. I was like, should I say no? Maybe I should. Yeah.
But we're happy. We're glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Please relax. Just, feel free to just say what's on your mind and share. We want to really get into the emotions and, walk this journey with you on how this money journey has been. Right. Because what I've come to realize is we all have, different journeys in life. For example, people take up different careers, people take up different courses, different jobs. But when it comes to the path of money, we tend to almost have a similar kind of journey where we grow up and money is not talked about, when growing up. In our households, maybe your parents were not intentional about teaching you about money. And so you find this is a normal thing in our African lifestyle or culture. And so by the time you reach 18, people think you're an adult or you're labeled an adult. You're a taxpayer.
Yeah, I imagine.
And so you're expected to know how to use your money.
Yeah.
So what basically this podcast is just about, exploring the real stories of how different journeys people have, when it comes to their finances and how we can learn and grow from it as well. So we can start off with your journey. Maybe you can tell us a bit about yourself first before we get into the story.
So, as you've heard, my name is Joanne Kiarie. I run a company called the Policy Group. We support governments, county, national, regional, in developing policies that are sustainable, mostly sub-Saharan Africa.
All right. Yeah. So that's your own business or?
That's my own business.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice. I love it.
Been at it for 9 months now. So far, so good.
All right.
There's the good and the crazy side that people rarely talk about, but it's definitely fulfilling. Yeah.
Here's a funny question. What do you do? What's your money? What's your personality? Are you a sanguine? Are you
a sanguine choleric?
Sanguine choleric.
Yeah.
So dominant is sanguine.
Dominant is sanguine. Yeah.
Okay. There's a place where I'm going with that. And people have different characters when it comes to money. So sanguines,
it's a money personality, right?
Sanguines can be associated with, very quick to spend and not.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Spot on.
Spot on. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my money personality has been, I didn't know about it until when I took your course actually, that like, yes, you're a sanguine. And what it means with money, it's like you're a bit more, you don't think through much. Yeah. It's very easy to be impromptu and say, I'm going to spend on this.
Yes.
Though beginning of my career, the choleric kind of usually checks in a little bit. So the first, let me say 3-4 years was, what we generally knew then was save 10%, live on the rest. And when you're younger, I think even life was a bit more affordable. So I'd even remember how my budgets look like. First time I moved out must have been 2011. And my monthly shopping was 6,000.
Yeah. Wow. Life was good.
Yeah. And I wasn't skimping, but that's what it was. Then what happened is that I joined government, and what comes with the office that I was in, there was
so at what age did you join government?
Wow, I was 25.
25. Wow.
Yeah. And the office that I was in, there was a lot of travel. And with the travel comes in the per diem.
Per diems. Yes. The famous per diems.
The famous per diems. And with that comes in genuinely a lot of money and little time to kind of think about how do you spend it, because most of the time you're in the office. So you'll find like spending on things that really they're not really a need, a want. And so that's where I broke from what I used to know.
Okay. So let's say, so now you have a good job, 25, you're starting your career, you land a government job that has a lot of travel. So then you have, extra income coming in.
Yes.
And you really not, at this point, do you have any responsibilities at this point?
No, I have no responsibilities except paying rent.
Except paying rent.
The honor gift that you sent to your parents at the end of the month. But beyond that, there wasn't much. And I mean, I didn't live like in a really fancy place, so my rent was really low. Utilities, of course, by extension, were actually low. So the disposable income was quite a bit. And with the lack of time, this was a job I even used to work on Sundays.
Oh, wow.
So there wasn't time to kind of teach myself how to spend the money. When you become broke, you're like, okay, when is the next trip? So that you kind of even it out. And so that was, and there's that seemingly thing that I'm there for a while, so you're not really.
So there's that comfort that money is always going to come in next month at the end of the month
or any time because you're traveling. So then what happened was that I needed to really structure my career, and I needed to move from the office I was in, and that meant less travel.
So before you want to restructure, how was so you basically were working Monday to Sunday?
Monday to Monday.
Monday to Monday.
Yes.
So it was a really engaging job.
Super engaging.
So did you have any time for anything else? Were you traveling other than official travel?
Other than official travel, I think the one thing, it's funny that we just spoke about it before the... the one thing I was really specific about was photography. And the photography came with travel.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Then I had a chama at that time. And, over and above I was doing the bare minimum, literally on my own, which is a 10% saving. Definitely would have been more, but I was doing the bare minimum.
So what about the chama? Was it those ones for merry-go-round? We do like this, or was it an investment chama?
It was an investment chama.
Okay.
And that one pushed me a little bit in that season because I really was in a chama with I like CEOs.
Oh, wow.
My sister is one who actually formed the chama. So I felt like super underqualified to be in that chama, but it really pushed me because there were seasons, especially when you need to invest, there were seasons that every month you have to choma 30, 40K. And it really pushed me. So you'd find that particular season, especially when you need to invest, let's say I'm going to Uganda and I know 80K or 90K is going to go towards the chama and I don't need to contribute for the next 3 months. So there was that season that really helped. But apart from that, definitely more could have been done in terms of savings. Coming about 2017 and I wanted to pursue policy. So, and so I'd done a bit of my homework, kind of aligned my ducks. And I knew that I had about 9 months to a year left. And that's when it hit me. This money is actually coming to an end.
So this is the current job that you were in, had 9 months left? Or it's...
Yeah. Okay. So I was going to move.
Oh, you were going to move?
Yeah. On my own volition because I wanted to do more.
Change.
Yes, I wanted to do more policy work.
At this time, would you say you were healthy? Like in terms of savings, you had some savings in your account?
It was somewhat okay.
You were okay?
Definitely could have been more. For sure could have been more, but it was okay.
You were okay? You were comfortable?
I was comfortable.
Okay.
I hadn't my lifestyle had not changed.
Okay.
I was living in Ruaka and rent was affordable.
Okay.
And so my expenses were still low. The only expenses that I had that were travel.
Yeah.
Like I love traveling, and that's what I did a lot with the money.
Okay.
So when that time came, what happened is that there was that kind of dawning reality that I was still going to be within government, but moving to a department where there was international travel. So it was mostly local and very rare.
So right? The per diem.
So the per diem was going to deep, definitely. And so before I moved, we went into a very heavy season of traveling locally. And so in that season, I can't remember the app. There was an app where you could buy shares by yourself. You just load M-Pesa. I can't remember the app. And so what I would do is that I would live on my salary. And then if you're traveling, let's say $12, you're not going to stay in a hotel that's 10K.
Okay.
You're going to stay in a hotel that's 2K, 1,500, save the rest.
Yeah.
So then I began saving a lot more.
Okay.
Then I didn't have any goal, but I just knew that this season is going to come to an end.
Okay. So it's like you are stocking up.
Yeah.
You know.
I was stockpiling. I didn't know for what.
Yes.
But I was stockpiling.
Yeah.
So then I got pregnant.
Okay.
And there's something that happens when there's a switch. I don't know what it's called, but then you try to kind of figure out, okay, what am I doing in my life? So I made the crazy decision to begin my master's when my daughter was born.
Wow.
So I began my master's when she was 6 weeks old.
So is this colliding with the transition already? So like you've already now transitioned now into the policy? Into the policy side. So then a baby has come. And now you're starting masters.
And I'm starting my masters.
Wow, superwoman.
Don't try this at home. Please don't. So the stockpile actually helped because I was able to pay about a year of my masters.
Wow. Okay.
So
was it local masters or international?
Yes, okay. Local masters. Okay. It was surprisingly manageable because at the time when I'd already transitioned, it wasn't that busy. So I was able to, so my focus was really my daughter and my masters because work wasn't busy at the time. And so then, marriage, so I forgot the marriage part. Marriage
so I got married
and got the baby. And so dynamics change because you're no longer paying rent. Like your responsibilities
so the man in your life now took up some of those roles. Paying the rent and some of the utilities. And okay.
Then I was doing mostly the household stuff.
Okay.
So the transition wasn't so hard because my expenses had reduced.
Had your salary increased?
No.
Or it stayed the same?
Stayed the same.
Okay.
Yeah. In government, changing, the job group had changed, definitely.
Okay.
I think a year when they confirmed it, it increased, but very marginally, I think by like 20,000. So I went back to the basics, saving bare minimum 10K. And so, I mean, motherhood comes in, you're not traveling that much, but now the expenses of diapers, clothes, newborn. So it kind of, let's say, evened out, but I was still saving at the end of the month, the basic bare minimum. Then what happened was that life happened. Yeah.
Okay.
My mom got a stroke.
Oh, wow.
And we hadn't bought insurance. So even a large chunk of the savings went to kind of...
to cover the hospital bill.
Cover the hospital bills.
How long was she in hospital?
Not long. Maybe a week, thank God. Because coincidentally, the stroke began happening while she was having the MRI taken.
Oh, wow.
So the recovery process wasn't long. But normally for stroke patients, they have to stay in ICU.
Yeah.
Overnight.
And
so that they can monitor brain activity and see how the stroke is progressing. And so that became expensive. My sister covered quite a chunk of the expenses, but we also had to think about insurance.
Had to chip in.
Yeah, and having my mom go through a stroke, plus she's diabetic and pressure, that meant the insurance premiums were really high.
Yeah.
And so most of my savings definitely went to that now.
Oh, wow.
So we are actually now to ground zero in terms of savings. And then what happened in that season was, what happens is that if you're a contract employee in government, they don't pay pension, but at the end of the contract, you get, what's it called? A gratuity.
Yes, gratuity.
So I saved a large chunk of that. I think I paid, I'd paid kind of a bit of the first year of insurance, and I paid, so I had like 18 months runway of mom's insurance.
Okay.
And then I saved the rest.
Okay.
Again, life happened. I was in 2020.
2020. Wow.
Then we separated.
All right. So
by this time, we've moved out of Kiambu. We're now living in Nairobi.
You're now living in Nairobi.
And the rent, guys, it's night and day.
So now it's you rebuilding.
Yes.
Moving houses, taking on bills that you didn't have initially.
Didn't have before, yeah.
And your income has remained the same.
As God would have it.
Yeah.
As I was going through the separation, I'd gotten a job outside of government, so I've left government at this point.
Okay, so now you've left government.
I'm in private sector. Nature of private sector, the pay is much higher.
Okay.
So I was able to cushion.
Okay.
So with the move, I was able to kind of do a large chunk of the expenses that come with moving, deposit, all those things.
2 months or 3 months deposit.
I think my
maybe at that time
landlord
it was 2 months or something.
No, it was at the beginning of COVID. This is 2020.
Oh,
it was the beginning of COVID. So the landlord actually took 2 months, but gave me half a month free.
Oh, wow. Okay, that's nice.
Which is great. I was really grateful. And so then what happened was I'm picking up rent and all the expenses.
And were you furnishing the house afresh? Or you moved with some items?
I moved with some items. So furnishing was bits and bobs, but not that much.
Okay.
I think with that transition, there was now rent. I had not mentioned that I had done a year of my master's, and then I resumed at the onset of COVID because I didn't have any runway.
So did you take a break?
I took a break.
You took a break
when your mom got
ill.
The stroke.
The stroke, yeah.
So then I resumed. So the expense of now being back in school and rent. So then still saving bare minimum. Yes, I'm earning more, but my expenses.
But then now you also have a nanny.
I also have a nanny that I'm paying for. And my daughter was just about to start school.
Wow. And nowadays the schools, we're almost saying it's a scam. The school fees for kids who can't even talk.
You're being told we played with Play-Doh.
Yeah.
So the strangest thing is that I was paying fees the same amount my mom was paying for my undergraduate parallel program.
Wow.
Guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's in the 100,000s?
No, not really. It's about 60, 70.
60, 70.
Yeah.
Okay.
and picked that up as well. I think then the other expense that came up in that transition was legal fees.
So basically, that means at this point, are you saving anything?
Bare minimum.
What is bare minimum? 10,000 shillings or maybe
it was about maybe 30 to 40.
Okay.
Bare minimum, like the basics, because of how things had kind of turned out. Thankfully, my lawyer was gracious, so I was paying slowly.
Okay, so this is the lawyer negotiating the separation.
When what happens when there's a separation? The normal kind of process is first you deal with custody, then now you deal with the separation issues later.
Okay.
So he was gracious to allow me to pay pole pole.
And how long did this stretch, like for paying the lawyer?
I think I paid. The process was a year, so I paid in that year.
Wow.
And good lawyers are expensive.
Yeah.
And the important thing is to get a good lawyer. So that kind of took a toll. And right after the court case came to an end, my daughter was starting school.
Oh wow. There was no breathing space.
Yeah, there wasn't breathing space, but you just take it on, because this is to do with raising your daughter. The one thing I didn't mention, like the whole time I've been working, I've always lived outside of Nairobi, saving on the expenses. But the one non-negotiable I decided is that if my daughter is going to get into a good school, you're going to live near the school.
All right.
And that's something that I have consistently kind of kept.
Okay.
Because growing up, we lived very far. In high school, I was in a day school in high school. And my mom, actually, it's funny because we talked about it 2 weeks ago. So her colleague told her that your kids will do better if you move closer. There's more time to read. So she made the sacrifice. The rent was really high, but I think before we moved, I was in quarter 3 or quarter 4, actually approaching quarter 4.
Yeah.
And the term that we moved, I went to number 6. Wow. And so for me, I saw the difference. Yeah. So I said, that's one thing I'm not negotiating about.
Yeah, because, a kid can spend a lot of time on the road commuting.
And then they get really tired.
They get tired and they get home and they have
to do
still
homework
and relax and
all that. So it's
sleep,
a bit hard. Wake up. And I find school is a bit more grueling than working because you don't work and then get home and work again. So I think making my daughter comfortable was important.
Key for you. Okay.
And that meant expenses were going up. So we maintained that.
Okay.
And the role I was in, I was there for 2.5 years.
Okay.
And I ended up moving to a different role, to a different job completely.
Okay.
And with that came a pay increase.
Okay.
And I think when you're out of survival mode and you feel like you're finally comfortable settling, you're like, wachanipatia mwili pole.
Yeah, the famous.
Wachanipatia, don't try this at home again. So then at the time, when I moved jobs, I was actually even in the process of also buying another car.
Okay.
And the other car was in an accident and was totally written off. So and that insurance process is long. When you compute pickups and drop-offs in Uber, it's very expensive. So you'd much rather kind of like buy a car. It's normally cheaper in the long run. So thankfully, the guys I was buying the car from allowed me to pay slowly. So then again, I actually depleted my savings a little bit to pay the deposit of the car. And then now they allowed me to pay slowly. So the increase was to pay for the car. I think then when I settled, you're like, okay, now maybe we can redo the house or maybe we can do this. And unfortunately, I took a loan.
Okay.
Yeah. And at the time, really what needed replacing was the TV and the couch, which I'd had since 2017, the couch. The telly was going off. So instead of just replacing those, I was like, okay, let's redo the house. And I took a loan. Unfortunately.
From a bank? Or from a bank. Okay.
From a bank. And so definitely now that kept on, the expenses increased, right?
Okay.
The role I was in, there was quite a bit of travel.
Okay.
And so I think the first couple of trips, there was a bit of excitement because now I'm back to
You are
traveling.
back to the initial, how life was in terms of travel.
Actually, I forgot to mention the other role had travel. But I think I still was in survival mode. So you're traveling out in, and there was COVID. You really don't want to catch the COVID, so to say. So you're not doing much other than what took you to the country.
So now this is after COVID.
This was after COVID.
And then now you're traveling. Now you can actually enjoy your travels.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the first couple of trips, got a little bit excited, bought quite a bit of stuff. And then
how are you buying these things?
With a credit card.
With a credit card.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
And then after the second or the third trip, I looked at that bill and in pounds, and I was like, this is ridiculous.
So it was a pound credit card?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was like, this is ridiculous. And so I was left paying the credit card in pounds, Jesus. And so that now, from that time, when I saw the bill and I began paying off the credit card, I just made a decision. If you don't need it, you're not going to buy it.
I can imagine, because after COVID, our exchange rate really went off the roof. You know, we were
through the roof. It was, I think, at some point, no.
A dollar, I think 160. I think we reached 160.
We reached 160.
Yes.
The pound was approaching 200.
even approaching 200, yes.
Yeah, it was about 190, 191.
Wow, so that must have been quite costly.
Yeah.
Would you roughly remember how much it was in pounds?
About maybe 1,500 pounds.
1,500 pounds, okay.
And that's a lot of money.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah. So when that happened, I was like, this is ridiculous. So when I travel, I don't do shopping. The only thing I'll do is buy one thing for my daughter, one thing for the nanny, and that's it. And doesn't.
So at this point, were you how are you? Were you above water or already kind of living above your means at this point?
I was still living in the place I was living. I think I moved.
In terms of your financials, were you affording this credit card, everything, and still having some savings?
Savings was again bare minimum. It should not have been bare minimum.
Okay.
But I was just still doing bare minimum. And so, and it was around the same time where our church was teaching us financial literacy around that time. So the lifestyle had become a bit expensive, mostly again to travel, and now traveling outside of work also. And so I think the wake-up call came at that time when I got that credit card debt, the bill, and I needed to repay it. And so it just kind of coincided with the season where we were learning about financial literacy. So in our church, we have 1 month where we do financial literacy.
Okay.
And so actually that was the time that your course was advertised in church.
Okay.
And I took it up. And then that class was a beating, in terms of what I was doing wrong and what I needed to change. And so the hard work began.
So apart from the credit card, sorry to bring you back, did you have any other loans at this point or not yet? Or you were...
Yeah, so apart from the credit card, I had taken up another loan. Okay. So it was one of those, you borrow from Peter to pay Paul. And so I was trying to finish this credit card debt. And because it was in foreign currency, I really needed to get finished.
Okay.
So unfortunately, I took a loan from one of these lenders. Who are not regulated.
Was it one of the mobile apps currently, or microfinance?
It was a microfinance that was not regulated by CBK.
Wow.
And
so I can assume that's quite expensive in terms of return. I mean, the interest you're paying.
The interest rate is ridiculous. So it was about 6 months of really kujikaza to finish both. So I finished the debt, I think in 2 or 3 months. And then I took another 4 months to finish this other loan. It was very expensive. And I think that's when I was like, yo, this is ridiculous. I can't do this anymore. And so
how are you? I'm interested. How are you emotionally at this point when bills are left, right, center? You're still a mom, young mother, paying school fees.
I think when I would after your class, that's when I began kind of doing the budget. And so there's the assumption of more money is coming back at the end of the month. Until when now the reality of in the 6-7 months when I was repaying the loans, of how much I was paying in debt. I could save that. If I had begun saving this much money earlier on, how further would I have been?
How much further would you have been? Yes.
That was a huge slap in the face. And there are the basics, like we're going to pay rent, of course, we're going to pay school fees. But the debt was ridiculous. And that's when I even began listening to the recordings again. And tightened my belt. It was difficult. The concert that you had to go to, it was not
a priority now.
It wasn't a priority. We're not eating out. We're going to cook and we're going to stay at home. I had to even also put a budget on generosity.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Helping out friends, family,
honor gifts. So there had to be a budget now put aside on that. And that meant staying home on Fridays when we'd have gone for dinner, on Saturdays. When you're taking your child out, that had to kind of come down. Instead of like going to a mall where you're paying for those 2 cars and then you're going. So that added up, right? And so it was, you're looking for now creative ways of
cutting down
costs. And still now my daughter's still having fun and discovering places like there's a mall you can go, she can play on a bouncing castle or play in the playground, and you're not paying anything except parking. So that's the route, the route I took. And thank God I did. Thank God I did, because about a year after I had to resign.
Wow.
For health reasons.
Okay.
Without another job.
Another job in line.
So the savings is what has carried us. And as you know, so what the expectation was that I needed about a month or 2 months to recover and for my health to go back to normal. And it was the hope that, the rules will come. The rules are always there. The rules didn't come. And I was like, okay, even as I was waiting for the rules to come, I was like, let me start my business, because I'd been approached several times to support here and there while I was working. And so I got a gig or 2 there. And actually those gigs are the ones that actually helped paying back the loans. But the gigs, again, the job wasn't coming. So I revived it and made it formal, and now began the business.
Okay.
9 months down the line, after I've resigned, still surviving on those savings.
Wow. So they really came through for you.
They really came through. It would have been a bit more comfortable if I'd saved a bit more, but we're still okay. I'm grateful that the bigger expenses have been taken on by family members.
Okay. So you got some help.
I got help with the school fees, but now the rest is what we're doing. I'm doing on my own.
Just on that point, you know, because it's really interesting that you reached out for help. You know, most people would actually just say, let me just die with my own problems. Let me not let anyone know what I'm going through. And that's how mental issues come in, depression comes in, and somebody is just smiling with you, yet they're drowning in their financials. So it's interesting that you actually
I learned that through my divorce.
Oh, yeah.
You can die not speaking to people about what's going on. When I transitioned out of, let's say, the first department I worked in government, the phone stopped ringing, right? And that was a wake-up call for me in terms of having the right people around you.
Okay.
And those are the people who now I reached out to throughout the separation, and same people. And mostly reaching out for help was from family. And my dad actually has picked up a couple of things, and I'm grateful. But most of the bulk of, financing the car, not financing, keeping the car running,
running costs, yes,
and service, rent, and all this, and utilities. We're still, I'm still relying on my savings.
Okay.
It's important to reach out.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we have the culture of we don't talk about money.
Yeah.
But when you have your tribe and there's nothing like a problem shared is half solved.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Someone might have a solution here, or someone can say, you know what, I have this job actually I need you to do. Then you can get the money from there.
Yeah.
But also it's, to be honest, is that financial muscle, like the financial intelligence. I think that's what you called it. Yeah.
Intelligence, yes.
Financial intelligence.
Yeah.
One of the things that actually has helped in this season is and the year, because it's been 2 years of now kind of living
rebuilding, actually.
Rebuilding, yes. It's been 2 years of rebuilding. Is number one, finding out places to do the grocery shopping.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised if you go to a really proper wholesale, the amount of money that you can save.
Yeah.
A friend of mine took me to a wholesale shop, and I remember, and there was a season where I can't remember when it was, that buying things, the increase was really drastic.
Yeah.
Around 10,000.
Inflation.
Month on month, which was ridiculous. And I remember that I had done shopping in a supermarket for the month worth 40,000. And when I went to the wholesale that has exactly the same thing, I was shopping for 18,000. I saved 22,000. So getting those plugs, going to the market. People don't go to the market in Nairobi. Yeah. So one of those, so those are the plugs that have actually helped reduce expenses.
Okay. So if you were to just, for somebody who's watching and in that phase of rebuilding and that phase of, you may be just finding out, life hits them, what are some of the, quick learning points that you've had in your journey that you just want to share with them and to encourage them?
Build your emergency fund. That's important. I think most people say 3 to 6 months. If you can do a year, that's great. Don't live according to the Joneses.
Peer pressure. Don't give in to peer pressure. They say it's more expensive to pretend you have money than to actually have it.
No one cares. Yeah. No one cares.
No one cares.
Whether, and they're not paying your bills. So know what your non-negotiables are.
Yeah.
And negotiate on the rest.
Okay.
I even went through a season where, I don't have to use the car.
Okay.
If I can math it, I can math it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
And people find it very difficult. A number of guys find it difficult to math. Imagine, it's so much cheaper.
Using public transport.
Yeah. Because even Ubers, the expense, it adds up.
Yeah.
It adds up. So I would use Ubers when necessary.
Okay.
But most of the time, especially when I'm by myself, you math it. Yeah.
Something like interesting that you mentioned, that you had mentioned to me about, you're able to even negotiate your loan.
Yes, I forgot to mention that. Especially if you have loans with a bank, you're actually able to negotiate.
Yeah.
And that's what I actually did. Yeah.
So it helped you at least make the the premiums a bit manageable for you.
Yes. Thankfully, I was able to finish the other loans, and I'm left with just one, with a few months left.
Okay.
But renegotiating really helps. Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, Joanne, for taking us through your journey. And I'm really happy for you as you're rebuilding. Your story is also actually quite encouraging. And I hope, somebody who was watching also felt encouraged that there's light at the end of the tunnel.
There's light. My dad usually says, there's always a positive to it. There's always a silver lining, no matter how the clouds are dark.
Okay.
Look for it. Because if you don't look for it, that's when you kind of die in your problems.
All right. All right. So you heard it. There's always a silver lining. So thank you so much for, just spending your time with us and just listening to this story. And if you're in a similar position, be strong, be courageous. You can also make it through, just like Joanne did. Thank you once again. You can, as always, please subscribe, share this episode with your friends, like it, so that we can reach as many people as possible. See you in our next episode.
Beyond the balance sheet is where personal finance meets real impact. We shine a light on everyday Kenyans, making extraordinary money moves, proving that financial growth is possible for everyone. Subscribe and join us as we rethink investing together.